Hi you two, how's home going? It's strange not seeing you. I really hope that you guys are doing well and that you're excited to do some art. This term's going to be a little bit different to what we've done before. And we're going to be looking at the artist Claude Monet. And he spells his name a little bit funny because he's French. So he actually spells his name C-L-A-U-D-E, and that's his first name. And his last name is Monet, but it's got a T on the end, M-O-N-E-T. And that's because he's French. So his name is pronounced a little bit differently to what we would expect when we look at the letters. Normally when we talk about famous artists, we would usually just call them by their last name. So we'll usually just call Monet, Monet, just like we did when we were talking about Pablo Picasso in prep, we'd just call him Picasso. I'm not sure why we just call them by their last names, but that's what we do. So we're going to talk today about Monet. And I've got a story to share with you about Monet, but this story is a little bit different than most of the stories that you've probably read. The thing that's interesting about this book is that it's a fiction book. It's a made-up story written by another person whose name's Laurence Anholt, but the characters in the story are actually real. Claude Monet was a real person, and the little girl in the story, Julie, is also a real person, but the story itself is made up. So it's kind of like it's non-fiction fiction. The characters are non-fiction because they are real, they're from history, but the story is fiction. This is not a story that actually happened, but all the characters that are in it are real, even the dog Louis. So this book is called The Magical Garden of Claude Monet. The Magical Garden of Claude Monet by Laurence Anholt. The Magical Garden of Claude Monet. When we only see one name here, Laurence Anholt, what does that mean? Do you remember? It means that Laurence Anholt wrote and illustrated the book. So he did the pictures and he wrote the words as well. I wish we had a garden, said Julie, as she looked down at the grey river which ran through the city. Even Louis, the greyhound, was bored of being inside. As soon as I finish this painting, said Julie's mother, I'll take you on a journey to the most wonderful garden in the world. It belongs to my old friend, the painter, Claude Monet. They took a big black train beside the twisting river, far out of the city and into the countryside. Then Louis began to run down the hill and into a lane where a huge wall stood around a mysterious garden. Stop, Louis, called Julie, but it was too late. Louis had gone. Julie didn't know what to do, so she got down on her hands and knees and wriggled inside. It was like crawling into a dreamy world where twisting plants grew as tall as trees. Julie ran around a corner and almost knocked over a big man with a spade. The man had a straw hat and a huge white beard. Oh, said Julie, I'm looking for my dog. Are you the gardener? I suppose I am, said the man. Come and look. One day, these tiny seedlings will grow into big flowers, but a gardener has to be very patient, just like a painter. Then Julie realised, You are Claude Monet, she gasped. Yes, laughed the old man, I am Claude Monet. Together, they searched for Louis along the shady path, deeper and deeper into the magical garden, until it seemed as if they had left the real world behind. Under a willow, Julie saw Monet's umbrella, like a huge white mushroom, and there was Louis. He had a blue nose, a purple ear, and one green paw. Naughty dog, shouted Julie. You've walked all over Mr. Monet's paintings. I think your dog wants to be a painter, laughed Monet. Look, he's made a picture too. Then Julie saw Monet's painting, laid out in the sun to dry. Clouds floating on a mirror pond, a field of golden haystacks, a row of wispy poplars, and a little Japanese bridge. The brush marks glowed like flowers in a garden. They turned the handle on a rickety gate and stepped inside. It was like a garden inside a garden, a wild, wet, watery garden where willows bowed over a silent pool. Together, they crossed the green bridge. Ooh, this one's a bit big. Ooh. When they rowed across the pond, it felt like floating in one of Mr. Monet's paintings. Julie heard the splash of the oars and birds calling in the trees. All around them, lilies sparkled like a midnight sky. When they reached the very middle of the pool, Monet stretched into the dark water and pulled out one flower, the biggest lily of all, as bright as a silver star. A little present from my water garden, he said. They walked back towards the house and Monet pushed open a huge studio door. Here is my biggest idea of all, he said proudly. I'm trying to paint the most enormous water garden in the world. When you stand in the middle, you'll feel as if you have dived into a pool. It will be amazing, said Julie. For a moment, Monet looked sad. But to tell you the truth, I wonder if I'll ever finish it, he said. I'm old now, and my eyesight is bad. Julie thought for a moment. You'll need to be very patient, she said, like a gardener. Yes, he smiled, just like a gardener. Then Claude Monet pulled out a big watch. 4 o'clock precisely, he said. It's time for tea. Waiting in the yellow dining room, surrounded by pictures from Japan, sat Miss Monet and Julie's mother. Here are your little runaways, said Monet. Then it was time to leave. Monet walked with them as far as the river. Louis wanted to say goodbye too, but as he jumped up, Julie's beautiful lily went flying into the river. Oh, Louis, shouted Julie, that was a special lily. They took the train back to the city, and even Louis was tired. The garden seemed like a distant dream. But in the middle of the night, Julie heard Louis whining to go outside. She tiptoed through the apartment, and beneath the balcony, something was sparkling on the river. Julie ran outside and stretched into the dark water. She pulled out a lily, as bright as a silver star. Perhaps it's a little present from the water garden, she whispered. And as the city slept, she breathed in the sweet smell of the magical garden of Claude Monet. The end. So Claude Monet was a really interesting painter, and this is a little photo of him here. So he looks just like the illustration that Lauren Sandholt did. He's an old man in this photo with a big beard, and he's even got that straw hat that they talked about in the book. There were a few paintings in this book that were actually photos of Claude Monet's artworks. So these 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, are Claude Monet's real paintings. And Claude Monet had 2 most favourite things in the whole wide world. His 2 most favourite things were his garden, which he loved spending time in France, and he loved painting. So it makes sense that the thing that he paints the most is his garden. He absolutely loved nature, and when you look at most of his paintings, he paints mostly nature. In his back garden, he had this beautiful water garden where there were lilies shining on the water, and there was that beautiful little Japanese bridge. You can actually go visit that if you go to France one day. and it's really, really beautiful, and it still gets looked after. Claude Monet also used lots and lots of different colours in his artworks, but his most favourite colours to use were cool colours. Do you remember back to year 1 and prep when we were talking about cool colours? Do you remember what colours we call cool colours? I do. Do you? Cool colours are blue, green, and purple. And we can see in Claude Monet's artwork that he uses lots of those colours, and they make things feel cold and wet and watery in his artworks. This story was about Julie, who was a friend's niece. So she wasn't related to Monet, but Monet actually knew her, and she crawled under his back fence to go find her dog Louis. Now, today for your artwork, what I would like you to do is I would like you to imagine that you've crawled under the fence of a magical garden just like Julie did. And I'd like you to try and draw for me what you find. I imagine that you'll see lots of nature, lots of beautiful trees and plants and things like that, but it's up to you what this magical garden looks like and what a magical garden is to you. Maybe you could take some inspiration from Monet and have a little water garden in your garden, or even just use cool colours. It's up to you what you have in your beautiful magical garden today. Once you've done with this artwork and you've taken your time and you've thought about what you might find under that magical mystical wall, please make sure you take a photo of it for me and get your parents to help you out and email it to me so that I can see what you're doing and what imaginary, amazing, creative things that you find under the wall of the magical garden. Good luck. I hope I hear from you really soon. Bye.